Are you one of the many podcast listeners who is constantly feeling annoyed at yourself for not following through with positive lifestyle changes? Are you constantly in a cycle of being good or on track or completely off the rails? Do you know you need to change, but routinely find that it's too hard? Don't worry, you are certainly not alone. And on today's episode of the Nutrition Couch, we discuss why change is so very hard and the simple steps to take control and self coach yourself to success. Hi, I'm Susie Burrell.
And I'm Leanne Ward.
And together we bring you the Nutrition Couch, the weekly podcast that keeps you up to date with everything you need to know in the world of nutrition. As well as coaching yourself to success, we have some new research that looks at the link between our diet and pain. We have a new snack bar that you're going to love. And our listener question is all about weekend eating. But I will also launch in today to say that this is the fourth time we are attempting to record our podcast in video format. How's that going, Leanne?
It's not going so well. We're not very good at tech. We might be good at the science behind nutrition, but tech is certainly not our strong point.
So it's been a testing time in the world of the Nutrition Couch because this is the fourth time we've tried to record and we've had some shocking attempts. Our videos haven't worked. One blew up an iPhone. We've had several levels of consulting. Leanne
We learned
is
not to do it in
truly over
4K.
And when we are on YouTube stars, Leanne, we will be grateful for this opportunity. We'll be happy. We'll be laughing about this. So I just want you to hang in there, have a sauna, chill off. It's going to be all worth it. You know, it's going to be okay.
We will see. We'll see if anybody watches on YouTube because somebody sent me a DM and said, oh, you can't go to YouTube. What am I going to do without the podcast? And I said, oh, it'll still be on podcast. And she's like, oh, thank goodness. I think she thought we were moving entirely to YouTube. So, you know.
Yeah, I think young people are the YouTube audience. Yeah, and we're just getting a little bit older. But anyway, we're going to give it a red hot go and it is going to be all worth it. So don't you worry.
We'll see.
All right. What I wanted to talk about was something that comes up all the time with clients. And I think you'll have a lot to add your perspective on it. But certainly, I think the first part of self-coaching yourself to success when it comes to change is probably the acknowledgement that change is hard. You know, change, if you had no external influences on your life. So, for example, if you didn't have to go to work, you didn't have to cook and prepare food for other people. You had all the money in the world. You didn't have to commute in terrible traffic. You didn't have a boss who makes you stay late at work. You only had to think about yourself. It would be easy to make positive lifestyle changes. You could spend hours cooking, preparing food, shopping. You could exercise as much as you want. And that's often why on holidays it can actually be easier to control your weight because your time is your own. And people are shocked by that. But I'm like, no, you know, often the issue is not that we don't know what we should be doing. We all know that we should be eating more vegetables. We shouldn't be eating as much rubbish. We should be exercising more. The complexity comes because we live in a very complicated life where many people are juggling 2 or 3 jobs. You know, they're doing their own job. Some people are needing to work 2 jobs because currently economically things are so tight. Then you're looking after parents or children or other loved ones and a home and a social life. So the issue is not you're weak. The issue is that it is very, very difficult. So I think the first hurdle in coaching yourself to success and making positive changes that lasts is an acknowledgement that it won't be easy. Because if it was easy, we would all do it. Now, there's a handful of people, sure, who are metabolically blessed. But in general, all of us have to work pretty hard. So that's the first thing. You have to acknowledge that it's not going to be easy. And human beings as a species don't like change. Humans do what is easy. They don't do what is right. Otherwise, a lot of us wouldn't be in a lot of trouble in our lives. We do what is easy. What is easy, Leanne, is to eat crap and not move. So again, an acknowledgement that you're not weak, you are human, and we will always do that. So I think that's the first thing. You have to go into any lifestyle change, whether it's starting a new exercise program, whether it's starting a new diet regime, whether it's committing to weight loss. You've got to give yourself the space and time to do it. But what happens, I notice with that group of my clients, and I guess I'd group into 2 groups. I've got clients who are, when they come to see me, they're ready to go. They've already started with their positive changes. They just want to be told what to do and when. And all of a sudden it works and they're on their way. And that's probably, I would say, 60, 70% of my clients because we do attract a motivated group of people because it's a financial commitment and, you know, we really invest heavily in our clients. That's our style of nutrition coaching. It's not just one-off appointments every month. It's, you know, every single day leaning in and let's get this sorted for good. And that's why it works. But then I certainly have a 10, 20, maybe 30% group who are, I don't want to say my whingers, but it's always hard. You know, there's always, you know, can't I eat whatever I want? Why can't I have this product? I'm finding this really difficult. I'm hungry all the time. And there's a real focus on the negative. And of course, that what you think about and believe continues. So rather than that early acceptance that it will be tricky, there's a resentment from the start. So we do try and work through that. But I think for anyone listening who perhaps hasn't committed to seeing a dietitian or can't or is trying to do it themselves, going in with that understanding that it will be tricky, you will feel it will be difficult and it will be uncomfortable. But if you can just get through those first hurdles and a first few clunky weeks, all of a sudden, like so many things, driving a manual car, having a new baby, it will click and have that expectation. And I think the other key thing in terms of self coaching yourself to success is that it's about small wins along the way. It's not perfection. Because I'll have people who will give me their history. They might have been away for the weekend or on a work trip, and they will always target the thing that they did wrong, that they didn't think was the right thing to do. And I'll say to them, and I said it just last night to a client of mine, look how far you've come. Yes, there are things that we still need to work on, but look how much better you were doing from when you started. And this is the long term progression. It's about improving over time. And indeed, we have a big listenership on the Nutrition Couch who will direct message us on Instagram and say, I've lost 12 kilos over the program over the last 3 years by these small changes. So I think particularly at this time of year when we are launching into the Christmas holiday season, party season, where there's a lot of extra food around, it's going to almost be impossible to have perfection. You are going to have meals out. You are going to have too many drinks. But if you can just get more better decisions than poor ones, and if you can just focus on small wins and building, you will still be even a few kilos lighter or at least weight neutral come the end of the year than if you continue with that attitude of this is too hard, it's not fair, I want to be able to eat what I want. It's always hard for me. I'm hungry all the time. And it's a real shift in mindset. And I find even with my tricky clients, eventually they do sort of acknowledge that and they click over, but it can take a little bit of time. So if you're one of the many listeners who are thinking, oh, I really need to lose that 5 or 10 kilos and I just can't do it, what is the difference? The difference with clients we see is we're coaching them through that daily. Or, you can do it yourself as well, but they're two really guiding principles. It won't be easy and it will be very uncomfortable for a period. And then it's about a level of acceptance and just small wins and building over time are some simple strategies to improve your relationship with food and diets and even exercise over time.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I had, like you, a perfect example of a client who felt like she was struggling, but the reality, like you said, was that she's done really amazingly and she's done a really great job. And overall, I think she's down 8, 9 kilos, but she's been fairly stable for the last, I'd say, few months because just so much has come up with life, the kids, the work, multiple trips away, lots of social things, that kind of thing. But she's actually been able to maintain. And so we really talked about that, like you said, acknowledging that it is hard, but calling it for what it is. Like, this is hard, not I can't do it or I'm failing. This is hard. Well, what's the next step I can take? And sometimes just that acknowledgement that the process is hard is just what clients need to actually take that next step, because such is life. Like, life is hard. And we had this discussion with her. I said it was hard when you were in a body that was 10 kilos more. It's hard now because you feel like you're doing the work. It's not quite coming off, but it's still hard to maintain. And what's even harder is going back and re-putting on that 10 kilos or going back to where you were. So life is always hard. And then when I jumped on a coaching call with her this morning, I was in my gym clothes. I was all sweaty. I did a really difficult workout at the gym. And I said to her, I've been training at what I would consider a high intensity for the better part of a decade or two. And I said that I still find exercise and nutrition challenging. It's not that it gets any easier over time. You just adapt to a different level of hard. And she said that that was a really helpful perspective for her because she just always thought that someday it would get easy and it would just flow like that. And I said, that's just not life. Like, just when you think you're getting the hang of it, something pops up and, something else becomes harder. That is just life. So just accepting that things are difficult, some more so than others. Some people, sure, they find it really easy. The majority of us, to lose or maintain our weight, there is an element or a level of hardness to that. And I think that acceptance is really important. But rather than saying, it's hard, I can't do it, we shift that self-talk and make that into that more positive or neutral self-talk. So it's, this is difficult right now. What's the next step I can take? Or this is difficult right now. How can I make it this little bit easier on myself? Whether that's planning ahead with your nutrition, whether that's changing a dinner and drinks with your girlfriends to a morning walk and a coffee. So you can sort of get the exercise in, still catch up, but also lighten the calorie load a lot if you've already had a heavier week. So shifting that self-talk and zooming out in terms of the perspective, like I said to her, you're already down 8-9 kilos. We're only a few away from your goal. Zoom out and have a look at how far you've come. And, will this actually matter in a year's time? Yes, it's hard now, but as I said, such is life. Things will be difficult. How can we make it that slight bit easier? Or how can we just push through this difficult period in order to get to a time where it's perhaps not as busy? It's not coming into school holidays. We have a little bit more flexibility with our schedule. So just kind of taking a step back and seeing how far we've come and seeing, will it, get a little bit easier from a timing perspective or a flexibility perspective later on? And the last thing I think that's really important when we talk about self-coaching is to focus on the controllables. Like I had another client who went away for like a big girls weekend and she's like, I'm so stressed. There's going to be alcohol. All of the meals are provided. And I said, it's okay. Like in life, we get to celebrate. Like food can be a celebration. It's not just calories in and calories out. We can enjoy it. We can go away with our girlfriends. We can have an extra drink or two. But what I said to her was focus on what you can control. And that is so important because I remember years ago, I had a conversation with a client and she was like, look, we ended up at this pub thing and I had to have this burger and then I was really hungry. So I had to eat the chips. And when we broke that down, like focus on what you can control. And of course, she had a beer as well. There was like 18 different things that were within her control that in the moment, it just all felt too hard, all felt too overwhelming. She had to have the burgers, she had to have the chips, she had to have the beer. But when we broke it down, she was like, well, I could have asked and seen if the kitchen could do chicken breast, not crumb chicken. I could have said, can you give me a half serves of chips? I could have taken the bun off the burger. I could have had a water or a Diet Coke instead of a beer. Like there were so many options within that situation that because all she was focusing on is this is hard, she wasn't able to see them. So my number one tip for people who are really struggling with the self-coaching is to focus on what you can control because you might not be able to control the food that's available or the restaurant that you're going to, but you can control your portion. You can control whether or not you eat something before you go so you're not starving when you get there. You can control leaning up the beginning of the week in order to have a heavier meal or two on the weekend. There's often so many things that are within our control, but when we're stuck in that victim mentality, this is hard, this is unfair, it's, why is it easy for everyone else and not me? That's where it really does become 10 times harder because it's often like we're in a funk and we just can't get out of it. So focus on those things that you can control and control your self-talk and acknowledge that things are hard, but you often have a lot of choices within that hard moment, I think are really the keys to coaching yourself to success.
True. And before we wrap up and I hand over to you to talk pain and food, which is another really important topic for people who deal with chronic pain, I actually also wanted to talk about it in terms of the specificity of client presentations. So, one of the common things with clients who are struggling, particularly in the early stages of change, is they will talk about feeling restricted because they're used to going and getting a banana bread at lunch, or they're used to having an extra coffee and a treat in the afternoon. So, they sort of even start feeling deprived because it's such a big change. And so, what I would say, there's two things going on. The first is there's nothing wrong with looking forward to something more indulgent food wise. But in my clinical experience, you're better to do it late after dinner because once you sort of break the seal and start eating rubbish through the day, it's very hard to stop. But something else to keep in mind is it is profound entitlement that informs us we can eat whatever we want when we want. And I think that it's okay to say that because I think there's a lot of people who have a belief that we should be able to eat whatever we want. And it's not fair that some people are able to do it and not others. And I, first of all, call BS that people can do it. I think that there is a perception they're doing it and we really actually don't know what they're doing. And also, many of them will not be so healthy, particularly as they get older. Some people may be able to do it when they're younger and burning a lot of calories, or, some people are on medications that burn more calories, et cetera, et cetera. But most people can't. And I want to also use the word should not. Like these are ultra processed foods that we shouldn't be having. So I think it's okay sometimes to say you're eating too much rubbish and you kind of need to detox a little bit from it because I think we covered this a couple of episodes ago. People are having multiple serves of discretionary food per day. This is why we're getting sick. This is why we're getting fat. This is why we're getting diabetes. We eat too much crap. So I think there is also a realization that sometimes you have to be told no, and that's okay. It's not going back to childhood where you're told no for everything if it's that trigger. But ultimately, to be a healthy adult, we can't eat those kinds of foods multiple times a day. At most, 100, maybe 200 calories worth, which most people enjoy at dinner, whether it's a glass of wine, some chocolate after dinner. And you and I both will talk about including those foods regularly in someone's plan. But our society is such that we're so entitled and think we should be able to have whatever we want when we want. And we've got into habits of doing it that sometimes our job is to call out and say, you're just eating too much crap and being actually a little bit honest with yourself. So don't tell me at the end you feel deprived because you didn't have your daily pastry, extra coffee, and whatever else, because before you were basically eating a little bit too much. So I would urge listeners without being disrespectful to be actually able to have an honest conversation with yourself and say, am I being a bit entitled here and eating a little bit too much rubbish? And that does happen quite often. Yeah, just a few little things to ponder. So we'll see if we get any feedback on that. The age of entitlement, Leanne. What do you think?
All right. Well, moving on from entitlement to our next section, which is on diet and pain. And we know that there are certainly, well, probably quite a few listeners out there who live with chronic pain. And certainly when I used to work at the hospital, I worked in one of the musculoskeletal clinics next to the physios and saw a lot of chronic knee and chronic back pain. And it's absolutely debilitating. So whenever we do see some new research in this area, it is really nice because most people don't want to take painkillers for the rest of their life. Most people want to be able to walk up a set of stairs or go for a big long walk without having that pain. And certainly we do know that eating well can influence your weight. Most people who eat well, eat in a calorie deficit, will lose weight. But what this new research is showing is that it potentially also affects chronic pain. So this is very exciting. It's a new study. It came from the University of South Australia. And what researchers investigated was whether improving the diet quality overall through a weight loss program, so it was actually a weight loss program, actually reduced chronic musculoskeletal pain. But they also wanted to know that if losing weight explained any link between diet and pain. So they analysed data from just over 100 Australian adults who were overweight or obese, and they then completed a 3-month dietary intervention where their energy intake was restricted by 30%. So this is what I would say is a very moderate deficit. Most of the time I start my clients off on about a 20% deficit, 30% is that next step up. So that I would say would be just that little bit harder to stick to. 30% is quite moderate. So in addition to doing the dietary intervention, they also measured the presence of what they call the chronic musculoskeletal pain score, pain severity, and the quality of life that the person was reporting related to the pain. And then they also took measurements around weight, waist circumference, and body fat percentage as well. So on average, don't forget these participants were following a calorie-restricted diet by about 30%. So you would expect and hope for some weight loss. So on average, the participants lost an average of 7 kilos, but the most important part was that pain relief was explained more by the quality of the diet, more so than just the kilos that they lost. So it's really, I guess, hopeful findings for people living with chronic pain or even people living who really do struggle to lose the weight. And because 30% is I would say is kind of hardcore. That 30-40% is a large calorie restriction. You will feel hungry for elements of the day. It's an uncomfortable feeling hunger. And so it is hard for some people to stick to. So just knowing that the diet quality overall, so healthy eating, not necessarily eating in a calorie deficit, may actually be helpful for people living with chronic pain. There were a few limitations in the study. There was no control group. And when we see a good, well-rounded study, we do hope to see a control group. And obviously the participants were on a form of a calorie-restricted diet. So it is, I guess, harder to rule out any kind of placebo effects over time without that control group as well. But I think, bottom line is it's an interesting study. It shows that improving the food choices is not just about calories. It's not about what goes in and what comes out. It's about better choices. It's about eating more whole foods, eating more fiber. The nutrient-rich quality of a food matters. Eating fewer ultra-processed foods, drinking less alcohol, because that's the other thing. The study didn't mention anything about, with chronic pain, one would think of inflammation. So they didn't measure anything like inflammation molecules, CRP, anything like that. So if they were to repeat the study, I would like to see a control group and I would like to see some of those pain and inflammation parameters actually measured, because I would think that the inflammation and that reduction through better diet quality, hopefully, that had an impact on chronic pain as well. That would be my thinking. But unfortunately, the study didn't actually cover it this time. But it is I guess, really cool and exciting to know that better quality diet changes may potentially help people with these chronic pain issues.
True, and I think a lot of the fasting research had been done as well on some of those inflammatory markers like cytokines to show now that was up to 25% reductions or even more on things like the 5-2 diet. So, how I like to frame it for everyday people is having even a couple of lighter days a week will help. We don't expect you to eat 1,000, 1,200 calories 7 days. Like, that's not healthy, even though it might benefit weight loss in the short term. But you might find that, once a week, just having a lighter meal or having a longer fast is enough to cut back those calories by 20, 30% without feeling like you're on an overly restricted diet and still yielding those benefits. So I think certainly there's a lot to be said for even small amounts of weight loss when it comes to pain and inflammatory responses. And yeah, adjusting the week so you're not having the same calorie load every single day and having a couple of lighter days is an easy way to do it in my experience. Now, speaking of whole foods, Leanne, you sent me a whole food snack bar. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we included a fiber rich bar that we got a lot of positive response from on the potty. Everyone loves a snack bar, don't they? So we've found another one. Now, you found this in the supermarket. I'm going to let you take us through it because it's your baby. But I think it's been around for a while, if I'm not wrong. This brand, it's got certainly 5 health stars. So I haven't
Yeah.
eaten it. Have you tried it?
I think the brand, it's nice and natural. So the brand certainly has been around for a while, but I only saw this in the shops about a month ago when I sent it to you. So I feel like it's newish, but I could be wrong.
New. They had a whole tip. Maybe it's just like a new variant.
Potentially, yeah. And as we're recording, they are currently on sale at Woolworths. Obviously, we do record in a little bit in advance just to get it to our editors, etc. So they're 30% off at the moment, retailing for $4.55 for a box of 5. But they currently retail for $6.50. So just over about $1 a bar. Which, when you think about it, if you were to go and buy like a protein bar at a service station, you're probably paying $4, $5,
$5.
$6 per bar. And same deal if you were to go. I myself am a sucker for a takeaway coffee at a coffee shop. I get soy milk, so I routinely will easily pay $6, $7 for one. So when
Yeah,
you
how
think
much is
about
a
it from
drive-through
that
Starbucks,
perspective,
Leanne? That's $7, isn't it?
drive-through
A
Starbucks is
drive-through
$7,
Starbucks?
$8, 100%. Yeah, we've talked about my sneaky Starbucks habits. So these, in the grand scheme of things, are a little bit more affordable, given that they're only about $1 a bar. And they've got quite a good ingredient list. They have a 5-star health rating on the front. We know that that can sometimes have its limitations. So we like to, as dietitians, read the ingredient list, read the nutrition profile, and then make a more informed decision. But basically, it's saying that it has 5 stars compared to the other generic muesli bars within that category. So it is certainly a better choice when it comes to fat, sugar, salt, fiber than some of the other bars in the category. That's essentially what the 5-star health rating means. So when we look at the ingredient list, the first ingredient is sunflower seeds, which it's so rare to see a seed as a first ingredient. And we love that because it's healthy fats, it's fiber. The sunflower seeds make up 44% of the bar, followed by glucose syrup. So sugar is the second ingredient, and that would be, I would naturally expect sugar to be, ingredient number 1, 2, or 3 when it comes to something like a muesli bar. Now, the next ingredient is interesting because it's soy protein crisps, and that's what is getting the added protein in the bar. Then you've got inulin, which is adding as a prebiotic type fiber. Next, you've got pumpkin seeds at 10%, which is great. We've got dried cranberry pieces at 7%, a little bit of natural flavor, some glycerine, an acidity regulator, a little bit of sunflower oil, and a little bit of salt. So I would say that it is probably between a processed product and an
No.
ultra processed product. Well, it's got the addition of soy protein crisps, which are, let's be honest, ultra processed, and inulin isn't something that you'd naturally find in your pantry at home. But they are certainly a much better choice than any other kind of protein bar on the market. And then per serving, so the bars are 30 grams each, per serving just shy of 600 kilojoules. 6.8 grams of protein in the bar, which is far more than if you were to pick up like a standard muesli bar or something like that. So nearly 7 grams of protein, which I think is really strong. 8.3 grams of fat, with only 0.9 of that being saturated fat, so a really good fat profile. 8 grams of carbohydrate, which for a muesli bar is quite low because it has a really strong seed presence within that bar. 3.5 grams of sugar, which is actually quite low when you think about it for the whole bar, even though the added sugar was the second ingredient. 0.3 grams of dietary fiber, which is really strong, and 50 milligrams of sodium, which is quite low, which you would expect in a bar. So overall, I really like them. I've been using them in my client meal plans. I think that they're a great little thing to like travel with, have in your handbag, just having your desk at work. I quite like them. Would you make a cleaner bar in your kitchen at home? Yes. If you're busy, if you're time poor, you want a better option in the shops, these are certainly one of them. And they're quite tasty too. I've tried them. I quite like them.
I agree. I think that for that amount of protein, it's a very nice calorie load because the issue with so many bars is that the protein bars are upwards of 200 calories at 180 to 200 in a very small volume of food. So you kind of eat it in two or three bites and you've had quite a significant number of calories and in some cases fat as well. So yeah, I really like them. I know they've always had a really clean ingredient list. I think that the seeds add so many good fats. You know, these are the fats that we don't get from very many other foods, those long chain plant based fats. So seeds in our diet in a controlled portion are good. I think, you know, I'd team it with, say, maybe some baby bell cheese or some roasted broad beans as an afternoon snack. But I do like that idea of just keeping it in the bag for those kind of emergencies as well, or in the car. So if you do have that late afternoon munchies and you're like, oh, I haven't got time to go home and do yogurt or cheese and crackers, and you grab that in a coffee or grab that on its own, it's going to tide you over. So yeah, I'm a big fan as well. You know, they're a New Zealand company, so I guess they're almost Australian, aren't they? Like it's a pretty close little
We'll
group.
count them as ours.
Um, and I think, yeah, in terms of this the seeded type bars out there, they're among one of the better options and certainly very affordable. So yeah, big thumbs up from me too. So we probably should add that to our product guide, Leanne. Just thinking as we
I'll
go to
just
print.
add that a lot of I've had a few, I guess, like DMs lately over Instagram, and a lot of people are using this like Yuka app, which like rates the foods and stuff. And if any food has got, say, like an emulsifier or an additive in it, it's like automatically quote unquote bad for you. And people will probably reach out and say to us, oh, this has an emulsifier in it. In my personal opinion, I don't think emulsifiers are as bad as what social media makes them out to be. I wouldn't be writing these bars in my clients' meal plans every single day. I'd be saying that this is something to put in your handbag when you're traveling, something to have in the snack bag. If your kid's soccer game runs late and you can't get home for lunch and you're starving, you pull this out of your handbag. And given that I would expect this to float around in my client's handbag or desk or travel bag for probably a good few weeks, if not months, and still be okay to consume 2-3 months later, it has to have some form of an emulsifier or additive in there to make that okay. If it didn't, it would be like moldy in less than a week. So emulsifiers and additives are not like, it's not as easy. It's not black and white. Nutrition science is not black and white. So when people send me products and they're like, is this good or is this bad? There's too many nuances around this. And I'll stop here, Susie, because I could talk for hours about this and it really frustrates me. If you want to have the bar because it's probably a better choice. If you don't eat it and eat your clean food, and that's cool. But this is an option for women who get caught out, get busy, need to take something with them traveling. And if it didn't have a few additives and an emulsifier in there, it would go off. That's the reality of it. So if you want to carry your banana, let that squish around in your bag for 3 days, pull it out on mushy at your work meeting on Thursday and eat that. You be my guest. But I personally would rather give my client a bar with a small additive and a small emulsifier, knowing that they're not going to eat that 3 times a day every single day, but it's still a better choice compared to if they got caught out, they'd have the sausage sizzle or the hot dog at the soccer game, or they'd eat the croissants on the work table. So I just think we need to take social media with a grain of salt. Sometimes it frustrates me. I'll get off my high horse now, Susie. But I think that's a little bit of food for thought for our listeners out there who are trying to find 100% clean food all of the time. I get it. You're just doing your best. But the reality is that a little bit of additives and a little bit of emulsifiers and preservatives in some food may not be a bad option.
Oh, I've got to just tread so carefully here. She's prickly today, people. All right. So first of all, I call it convenient diet theories for you. So people cherry pick the dietary information that suits them at the time, but then forget it all when they're at the pub on a Friday and ordering plates of deep fried wedges and arancini balls and having 12 glasses of wine. So that's how I like to frame it. But what I think we can take from this, Leanne, is why don't we have a segment in an upcoming episode about nutrition rants, so things that drive us crazy. And then I feel like it would be like a form of therapy for you, and you can get it all off your chest and maybe entertaining for our listeners. So should we do that? Would that make it
Potentially,
feel
yeah,
a
maybe
bit
that's a
better?
good
Yeah.
idea.
And I'm strongly encouraging you to go and have a sauna after this body record. I feel like it'll do the world good. All right,
Yeah.
on to the
Good.
last segment, which is very positive. We've had a listener request on our Instagram, so send all your requests through on the Nutrition Couch Instagram page. We get all of our product requests generally and listener questions from them. And the question is, how can I have some fun weekend food that I can make at home? And I thought there's a lot of this going on in the supermarket. What do they call it? Fakeaway. There's a lot of
Mm.
headlines on Fakeaway at the moment, and I think it's good because we've spoken about this before that I just find takeaway so ridiculously overpriced now and certainly not worth it. The quality is just often not there. And so there's just so many things in the supermarket you can make that taste better than takeaway that are still giving you all the deliciousness of fast food. And certainly when you and I get together, we are very happy with a pre-made, you've got a pizza oven, so sometimes you make them. But I'm very happy with a good old Coles truffle pizza. Like, very happy. So we certainly do that when we get together. But a couple off the top of my head, and I'm sure you've got some as well. I think homemade burgers are so easy to do and you can make them so healthy. So the peppercorn lean beef burger is the lean one, but there's quite a few. Macro have got a chicken one as well that's less than 10% fat.
Grilled have a new
Um,
range.
but are they lean? That's not lean. I had a look.
But aren't we talking about fun
It's
dinner
fatty. It
options?
can be fun
You
and
didn't say
lean,
lean,
Leanne.
you
It can
said
be fun
fun.
and lean.
You said
I
fun.
said fun and lean. Well, grilled you haven't. It is higher in fat, but yeah,
Mm.
you can. I'd keep away then from the Porto peri peri chicken seasoning, which has got more salt in it than you need in an entire day. So don't grab that from the seasoning section. But yeah, you're right. There is those, and I think there's so many good bread rolls. You can get the low carb ones. You can get a flat kind of hamburger roll, which is smaller in itself. You can get the low carb varieties. I think I just said that. You can get a multigrain roll and take the middle out. You could get a sandwich thin and do it that way, and do it as a pressed one. So to me, it's so easy to do the homemade burgers. Even sausage sandwiches are going to be a million times better than like awful sausage rolls with trans fats in them and pastry that you get. I think we've gone through before, there's so many supermarket wedges and potato chips, which are like over 90% potato or sweet potato. So go for it. Stick those in the oven or the air fryer. They're fantastic. I'm a massive fan of dumplings. I personally quite like Mr. Chen's. I think they've got a really high percentage of meat in them and they don't have added MSG, but there's also a whole range of different ones. They're probably my go-tos, and the pizzas. I love the Dr. O's pizza. I like the thin and crispy McCain pizza, the beef one. It's very thin base. And we love the truffle Coles pizza as well. And also in Coles Finest at the moment, they've got these bags of mushroom risotto,
Mm.
pepe lasea, gnocchi, and tomato. I love those. And sometimes I'll get the Coles Mediterranean vegetables, mix it through. If I'm quite hungry, I'll put some chicken breast, bit of parmesan, like so delicious. And I'll get 3 serves out of that. Still enjoy some pasta or gnocchi or risotto in a controlled portion. And again, so much cheaper than takeaway. Like those bags, I think are about maybe $12 not on sale, maybe 9 on sale. 3 serves, like you're looking at $3 or $4 a serve. Like a risotto at a restaurant's what, $30. And you know what else I love? I love a steak sandwich. So I'll go to Aldi and I love the Aldi fillet steak. You can get the piece of it. It's about $25, but that will feed 6 people, at least 4, if not 6. I'll caramelize onions with some butter in the pan and then get beetroot cheese, and I'll get like a ciabatta loaf. I usually, if I'm at Aldi for the meat, I'll get the ciabatta loaf and toast it, and so delicious, and give me that any day over most takeaway. So you can certainly do it, and it can be a million times healthier and I'd argue more delicious. What else have I forgotten? You do Mexican a lot, I know.
We do we do like do it yourself taco boards where
Oh, I love
one of my
tacos.
girls likes spinach and cucumber. The other one likes carrot and lettuce. So we just basically do the meat. I always put beans in there. I always grate the zucchini and the carrot. So not hide veggies, but put some veggies within the mince and then always serve it with a whole lot of salad as well. And then it's just the taco shells as well. We do sour cream, cheese, salsa in the middle. And then I've seen this one that I want to try for the kids. It's soft tacos and it's like a deconstructed fajita board. So it's like sliced steak and then it's like the capsicum, the onion, a bit of like grilled mushrooms, and then there's a bit of lettuce and stuff on the side. And then there's your toppings like your cream, your guacamole. So it's like a do-it-yourself fajita board as well. So I think that's really cool. Do-it-yourself pizza stations. Like you said, we've got a pizza oven. So whenever we have friends over or we have a large amount of mouths to feed, we do all of the bases. We basically have tomato or barbecue sauce they can choose. And then we just have this whole range of toppings. And it's like build your own pizza basically. And then in the pizza oven, it's a couple of minutes in, out, in, out. And it just makes things really easy. Do-it-yourself sushi bowls are also really good because even for young kids, you could just do chicken, rice, and a bit of cucumber. And then the adults can put the nori sheets, the smoked salmon, the sesame seeds. You can have a bit of a miso dressing. I find sushi really tedious to make. Like I don't make it because I can't roll them fast enough before they're eaten. So I'm just like, hard no. If I'm going to do sushi, I'll just do it in a deconstructed bowl because it just is so much easier to do. So I think that's a really good one. Or like one pan, kind of one pot meals. Like if you do a nice lamb shoulder or something in the slow cooker and shred that, you can get so many different types of meals out of that. You could make some nachos or a nacho salad bowl. You could do that with some potato chippies in the oven and some salad. You could do that with roast chicken chicken as well, like shredded roast chicken. And then you could do salads, you could do cooked veggies, you could do roasted potatoes on the side. I think any kind of deconstructed meal for families or like a group of friends is a really good option as well, because it's really rare that everybody likes the same thing. So I think that you can deconstruct it and people can pick and choose what they like. Like this one likes tomato, this one likes carrot, this one likes a bit of chicken, but that one wants vegetarian. I think it is a really good way to accommodate a crowd, or for more fussier families or families with smaller kids as well.
And the question was also about desserts. So my number one take home with desserts is that there are so many individual mini size ice creams now. You would argue you're always much better to buy those than tubs of anything. Like you can get the little, even the Mars bars or the mini cornettos, all the ones Coles have got, the little mini sandwiches, literally everything in a much smaller portion. Whereas if you open a tub of 2 litre gourmet ice cream, you will eat the whole lot absolutely regardless. Whereas if you have the individuals, it's a much easier way to portion control it. I think when it comes to blocks of chocolate, they're so small now, like Jesus, they'd barely feed 4 people. Long gone are the days where they're big. So it's so expensive. But I think the individual ice creams are a really smart way of keeping families' amounts controlled and still having all the deliciousness of mainstream desserts. So they're probably my best tips for that, but much easier. And so, because you know at McDonald's now, so I like a cheeky hamburger, a junior burger. I've had it since I was a child. I love it. Like it's disgusting. I know it's my worst. It's worse than the Diet Coke, which I've ditched. But a cheeky hamburger at McDonald's is my go-to. But do you know how much? So they charge like $5 for the Happy Meal, maybe $6.
It's pretty
Do you know
cheap.
how much a thick shake? You know how much a thick shake or a sundae is? Like $5, $5 or $6. So
Really?
that's
Like for
expensive.
the cone that used to be
No,
30 cents from
not the cone.
Oh,
For the sundae, like a sundae
a
in
sundae.
the thing, or a thick shake, $5. That is a lot of money. They're not that big. So that's how they get you. They get you the cheap Happy Meal, but then as soon as you add the desserts and stuff, so you're much better to go to Coles or Woolies, particularly when all the ice creams are half price, because you get 4 for $5. One sundae at Mac is $5. How can
Yeah,
you
that's a
justify that?
lot.
They're not very big. I was at McDonald's locally recently, and this lady came in and she'd ordered sundaes for her kids, and she went off her head at the McDonald's staff because when she looked, they weren't that full. So she had obviously experienced the $5 sundae, and she realized that they hadn't even filled it properly with the stuff. So she went off her head at them. So yeah,
Inflation,
they're
man.
making
Drive
some
up the
point on
price,
that.
make it smaller.
Yeah, so don't think it's cheaper. You're actually much better to do it at home and have those options, which are just as delicious, but portion controlled. So.
I love, again, if I'm like entertaining or something, I love chocolate covered strawberries. I like fruit skewers where you can either dip them in a bit of like chocolate fondue or you can dip it in like a bit of yogurt. I love stewed apples. Like coming out of winter, we did a lot of stewed apples, a bit of granola on top, a scoop of vanilla ice cream. You can do it with like berries as well. That works really well. Like a nice berry bake crumble ice cream. That works really well. And like you can do like a healthier, like frozen yogurt, like a banana and ice cream. I've seen a lot of those like ninja ice cream things online. Like a lot of influencers have them. We don't have one, but that could be a really fun thing. You can kind of make your own ice cream. Oh, maybe that's why I don't have one.
So if
No,
anyone's
I'm like you.
listening
I'd
from
rather buy
Ninja,
them.
Leanne and I are very happy to mention it. Because
Try one out. Give it a whirl.
Because we saw that on the football finals and my little boys were beside themselves. And then I was like, oh, yeah, that's a good Christmas present for $50. I was like, wow, they're not missing out. But you can make a lot of healthy desserts with it. And we're very open to sponsoring and giving it a go, Ninja, if you want to like purchase one. We'll share it between us, no drama. Yeah. All right, on that note, Leanne, we're getting silly. Time to wrap it up. Perhaps our first video of the Nutrition Couch. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Let's just spice it up. And keep listening to us and tell your friends about us. And if you're interested in some supplements scientifically formulated for women, check out our Designed by Dietitians website, designedbydietitians.com, and we'll look after all your nutrition needs. So have a good week and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Catch you guys next week.